Humans too are perfect. And this throws people off all the time. You always hear me say this, the answer is within. And I'm going to teach you how to find that.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the ADHD Eavesdrop, where you can be a butterfly on the wall and listen in on my conversations. And who am I? I'm Janine Van Stee. I'm an ADHD life coach who helps people better manage their symptoms and live the best lives that they can. And today, we have a great conversation with Cheryl Dics. Actually, part 2. So if you listened to last week's conversation, you know that we're waiting on the second half and really excited to hear it, right? But if you didn't hear last week's, you probably want to go back and check that out and then come back and listen to this one too. So we're going to dive right into the middle of a conversation that we started a week ago.
So when you know why you're doing what you're doing and that you have support within yourself, you always hear me say this, the answer is within. And I'm going to teach you how to find that. So we talk a lot about, this is where we're going to bring in the mind, the body, and the spirit. So we talked earlier about that we have a mind and it's a thinker. And if you've listened to any of your podcasts, you'll hear us talk about, the itty bitty shitty committee and having committee meetings and that sort of thing. And look back on some of the other podcasts to hear about that, because it's pretty great. But we have a thinker. Right. And so when we were born in perfection, right? We were born from creation. And I like to say to people, the world is actually perfect. So if you have an acorn seed and you put it into the ground, what's going to come out of the ground?
Hopefully a tree.
Yeah, but it doesn't need to say hopefully, it's just going to be a tree because it's perfect in its design. It doesn't need our intervention. It doesn't need our help. Mm-hmm. So our swimmers and our four-legged and our winged, they don't think, oh, I hope my feathers look good today so I can get some worms for my chicks. No, the world provides. Our swimmers, a lot of our swimmers take very, very long journeys to make sure that they can, procreate the next generation. Mm-hmm. They don't think that, oh, I got to get up this rock and I'm going to get up this fish ladder. They just do it because there's a drive to do so, because it's perfect in its design. Humans too are perfect. And this throws people off all the time. So humans too are perfect. When you were placed into your mother's womb, you didn't want or need anything. It was all provided for you. And as you went through that 9 months, you came out and you might have cried a little bit, but still everything was perfect. You were fed, you were changed, you were cuddled, you were nurtured to become the person that you are today. But there's one point in your development, usually around the toddler stage, when we identify ourselves as our name. So it'd be like Janine, Cheryl. You're Janine, I'm Cheryl. And then we hear the infamous word no. Don't touch that. Get away from there, right? We're encouraged right up to that point. So say me and you are playing in a sandbox and I take away your toy. And you're like, you'll say, that's my toy, or that's Janine's toy. Mommy, she won't give me back my toy. That's Janine's toy. So a lot of kids will speak in third person. Mm-hmm. So when that happens is when the ego is born. So the ego now learns that it feels separate. So it believes that if I don't get the toy back, there's something wrong with me, or I'm going to lose something, or I feel sad or lost or angry. And so we get these sort of emotions, and our parents do the best they can, every single one of them, just say, be nice, give the toy back. You're like, but I don't want to because I'm 2. I don't have any emotional intelligence to understand your reasoning, mommy. So I'm
not ready for that concept yet.
Exactly. So a lot of adults are just overgrown toddlers, but a lot of us were never ready for the concept, So as we mature and become young people and, preteens and teens, we're going to get all of this information and our mind is going to catalog it and categorize it and put it into these little spaces. So as things keep repeating itself, the brain will say, oh, this is the same as when we were 6. And so now I'm going to have a temper tantrum. And now I'm, 15 having a temper tantrum and people are looking at me like I'm strange. But because I don't know that these parts are kind of locked in there. So that's why we talk about the mind a lot, because what the mind thinketh is how the body will respond. So if I take your vape away from you right now and say, it's mine now, you can't have it anymore. It's mine now, you can't have it. There's the response. What is the response?
What is the response? At this
Emotional
point,
response.
it would be thank you because that's probably the best thing for me. But my
But
first instinct is don't you dare.
right, that's right,
Who do
right.
you think you are?
Exactly, 100%. But as adults, we're trained to not say those things. We're trained to smile and be nice and go, oh, okay. Or we people please and we'll give it to you, or we will ignore our needs and you're like, I really need that, but she just took it, right? So, but when you're honest, and you'll always see the somatic response, and if anyone's watching you, just rewind that a little bit and watch her change.
I'm
So
like,
then
oh,
so then the body responds to whatever the thinker thought. And so it says, I need to keep her safe. I need to protect her. I need to keep that product. We're not ready. We haven't made the decision yet. This is not a good idea. Who does she think she is? Because now it's like she's trying to feel separate, right? And that's what we talk about, all of that stuff. So every time we have a thought, we have a somatic response. So we need to learn about, is the response appropriate? And is it the right response? And does it serve me or does it harm me? But we never ever take a look. We just like go along our merry way. We had a good day or we had a bad day, or we complain about the boss. We complain about the neighbor. We complain about the government. We complain about all of these things outside of ourselves. So when we can learn to be with self, right? And there'll be a day when you've made this decision and I say, can I have your vape? And you will happily give it to me because you've made that decision, right? And you're going to allow yourself to be able to do the work and look at the thinking, the thoughts, and the beliefs. So we do what we teach you to find your sacred self, because no one's going to ask you to do this on your own. As I said earlier, the answers are within. So each and every one of us have still that perfection that was created in your mother's womb, that wants and needs nothing, that is perfect in its design. You don't have to think about your heart beating or the air going through your lungs or the blood circulating through your body. It's done automatically through the perfection of creation. Just like an acorn goes in, you're going to get a tree. A monkey's not coming out of the ground. A tree is, because it doesn't need our intervention. Within us is a sacred self. It's a spirit. We're going to connect with that perfection. So when you do that work, you'll understand that, wait a second, who's doing the thinking? If I'm perfect and I can connect with this voice that's deep within me, and it's my guide, my mentor, my higher power, my source, which is all provided by creation, who's thinking these thoughts? Who's the one who says I'm a failure? Who's the one that says I'm afraid of being rejected? Who's the one that says they don't like me, or I'm not pretty enough, or thin enough, or tall enough, or successful enough, and blah, 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 off round and round we go. We'll
and
say,
isn't that what we always come back to? Is
right.
that we're our own worst critic.
Yeah, so we're going to meet the critic. That's part of the work. We're going to meet the critic.
And take them
That's
on.
yeah, that's shadow work. Yeah, that's shadow work. So we're going to learn how to build a relationship with our higher power, our sacred self. We're going to create a sacred garden, a sacred space. And what's so beautiful about this work is it's of your design. It's not of my design. It's of your design. What makes you feel the safest? What makes you feel the happiest? What brings you joy? A place that you can go to that's a sanctuary for you. And you can go there in a stall, taking a 5-minute break from work, and you're like, I just need to get grounded, and go to your sacred space inside your mind, hang out with your sacred self, and ask the questions. One of my favorite questions is I'm overwhelmed right now. What is an action step that I can take that's good for me? Because right now I want to rip everybody's head off. No, you're going to breathe, maybe, might be a good action step. And remember that you are perfect in the truth of who you are, and live authentically as you are. And you're going to learn how to develop that.
One of my favorite questions to ask my sacred self is, how are you doing?
Yeah. Oh
How you
yeah.
doing?
because you're building relationship. You're building that trust to realize that she never lies to you.
Right.
She
And so
always,
essentially I'm asking, how am I doing? And checking in, right? Doing a check-in.
yeah, but that voice that's in your belly is going to answer the hard questions that maybe you don't want the answers to.
Hmm.
And it never lies to you. Again, take the course, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Mhm. So then you have your sacred self, you build relationship, you see yourself as the observer, and you're realizing that you're actually not this body mind. So when you leave this planet, you're going to go to another plane. Einstein says it perfectly. You can't fix a problem from which the plane in which it was created. So the plane of my spirit was created here, and my next plane is this physical body. And then the next plane is going to be where I go from here. Right. So everything it's always constantly changing. Okay, so let's get back to the mind and the thinker. So we're going to get you back into your sacred space, and we're going to meet what we call a shadow. So the shadow, he's like a gatekeeper. Mine's male. He's a gatekeeper, or she's a gatekeeper. And inside this space is the stuff we don't talk about at parties, right? It's that I'm not enough. I don't feel safe. I've been abused. I've been neglected. I'm too fat, too thin, not strong enough, not smart enough. But inside there is, we call those personas. So inside we have different personas. And one of those personas is your addiction. And so we do a meditation about your addictive brain. So if you're shopping too much, or if you're vaping or smoking pot or playing video games or drinking alcohol or using drugs, there's a persona in there that wants to run your show. You intellectually know that that product is not good for you, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But why do you do it? Intellectually, you might have felt a little bit triggered there, which I think is great. But isn't there a voice in there that tells you to pick it up?
Well, yeah, I mean, like ultimately, you convince yourself that you like to do it.
Well,
You know,
who's doing the convincing as the observer, seeing the body mind? Who's saying it?
well, I am.
Well,
I
your
mean,
persona.
yeah, my persona, absolutely. But
Mhm.
it comes back to, what that question, why do you do it, is actually the reason that I'm not doing it. Like I'm quitting doing it because I can't come up with a good reason to do it, you know? Um, where I used to be like, well, it helps me cope with my stress, or, I can't get through the day or whatever. And it's like, what am I getting out of
I'll
this?
stop you there. I'm going to stop you right there because it's perfect. I want you to say that again. Oh, it helps me through my day. I want you to tell me all the scripts that your addictive brain has said to you to keep you using that product.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I need it for stress. I need it to stay awake. I need it to concentrate. I need it to focus. I need it to help my anxiety. I need it to keep me from eating too much. I could go on and
On
on
and
and
on
on
and
and
on.
on.
Right. So that's your addictive brain, who's actually like a persona. So when we go to our sacred garden, we're going to knock on the door where our shadows are, and we're going to meet the addictive brain. And we're going to personify them. We're going to allow them to have a physical form. They can even have a name. And that's who's saying that to you. Not Janine, the truth of who you are, but this
Hmm.
entity or energy, right? So if you could stand in front of this energy, what would you say to them?
I don't need it.
Mm.
Yeah.
You
I
can
mean,
ask her to, or him, how do you serve me?
well, they don't serve me. That's the whole point of
They
the,
think they do, though.
they think they do. Well, because, if you're looking at it from their standpoint, they truly believe that you do need it for all those things, right? And so it's it is a manipulation to a degree, but it is also a true belief on that persona's part that you need it for this and you need it for that. And so I feel like if I start looking at the persona, it's terrified.
Because it's going to die. if you give it.
Yeah, if I question it and say no, I don't need it anymore, then that's terrifying. And I think that that's the part of me that panics a little bit when I think my vape is probably going to run out today or tomorrow.
Mhm.
That's the panic I feel.
That's the panic the persona makes you feel.
Yes.
So if you stand here as the observer and you're standing here with your addictive brain and you welcome your sacred self to the conversation and you tell that persona, I have made a decision. We are no longer going to have this in our life, and you are no longer welcome here. I will not be using you to cope. I will not be using you as the solution. Whatever your reasons are, remember, it's cunning, it's baffling, and it's powerful because it wants to live.
Hmm.
So it's going to try to trick you. And you just be with it and just say, we've decided, and sacred self will take care of you while you have a battle with this voice. It cannot be stronger than source or higher power or whatever energy you want to call it, God, Buddha, you know, um, source. There's so many terms that people use, creator. It's not stronger than that. So it has to retreat. So when it retreats and goes back to the shadow box, you can be with sacred self and realize you just were brave enough to have a battle with your biggest challenger. And you're slowly going to keep fighting these battles. And sometimes you won't even need your sacred self. Sometimes you don't even need to go to your sacred garden. I used to hear a voice that would say, oh my God, it's almost 5 o'clock. Let's have a glass of wine.
Mm.
Or I'd be like, well, I've made a decision. Alcohol is no longer a part of my life. And that was 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago. Or they would say, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Or you've been a really good girl. You deserve a glass of wine. And see, you've been sober for so long. They're lying to you. You were an alcoholic. But when she takes over, I call mine the wine witch. When the wine witch comes in and takes over, Cheryl is locked up, blindfolded, handcuffed, gagged, and put into a room. I don't get any more power. I don't have any say. I'm powerless over the wine witch. And the wine witch comes in and she's beautiful and fun and the life of the party and she's doing all this great stuff, but I'm still responsible for her behavior. And then when she's done with me, she leaves, goes back into the room, and then I come back and go, what just happened? How did that happen? How did I fall again? Because you weren't running the show. You've been dealing with a disassociation that has taken over. So a lot of people, for example, with the Mark Twain idea, I've quit 100 times. It's easy to quit. It's hard to stay quit, right? Why? What's bringing you back into that? Is that persona has been tricking you, been lying to you and convincing you and is teaching you, telling you all of these things in your head. And it'll even make up stories about people, events, and how you're the victim and how you deserve this and, that they're trying to protect you. But when you see them for what they are, they become powerless. And with that support of that sacred self that we teach about, you are not alone. Because that's the hardest thing to deal with recovery or any type of recovery is to be alone with self. That's one of the hardest things that we can do because things come up. And if we don't have something to cope with it, they have the solution. And they're going to come in. We call that the crack, right? If there's a crack in the doorway, they're coming in. So we got to seal that up. How do you seal it up?
By sticking with my sacred self and taking on my inner voice that seems to have all these reasons why I need to stay using my vape.
Exactly. And we're going to talk about emotional intelligence. So your boss calls you up and it says, I need this done by Saturday. You're like, Saturday? I don't work on Saturdays. Well, you need to come in because you didn't get the project done on time. You're going to have a reaction to that. Many, many reactions. You're going to have many thoughts to that. You might even people please and go, yeah, okay. That's not what you want to do, but that's what you're going to do. And you don't have this coping mechanism. So we're going to touch that stuff. We're going to touch how our children make us sad, how our children make us angry, how our husband or wife isn't always easy to get along with. And we're going to learn how to like ask ourselves, what am I believing right now? What am I believing about this scenario? And as you get into recovery, you'll find that you deal with different topics. At my first year, it was like all about emotions, right? What's an emotion? So there's 9 in total, like we try to say as a category. So we call it egg flap cap. So apathy, which is you give up. I don't want to do it anymore. It's too much. That's when your wine witch or your addictive brain's coming in. And then you have grief, fear, lust, anger, pride, courageousness, acceptance, and peace. So there's 9 categories. And underneath each one of these 9 categories is a whole bunch of words that really delve into what is the definition of apathy. So when you're feeling apathetic, or you're feeling like you got to give up, and you're looking at the vape and you're about to pick it up because life's just, you're done. You're done. You're going to pick it up because you're done. That's where a relapse is going to occur. Or if you're really, really angry and you're out of your window of tolerance and you're super hyper vigilant, that's when the addictive brain is going to show up. Whenever you're vulnerable or overwhelmed or overstimulated and you're not living life on life's terms, you're not checking in with yourself, you're not living authentically, some people aren't going to always like how you turn out at the end of this. But as long as you're okay with how you turn out at the end of this, because when you can live authentically and stop people pleasing, stop being the victim of everyone else's stuff, or stop being pulled in from outside of yourself, just really being grounded and centered in yourself, this stuff just releases. So when you understand how emotions show up for you, you can process them. So that's why we talk about emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence, I look at it as a pressure cooker. So everyone knows what a pressure cooker is. You put cans of jam in there and there's like a little bobble on the top. And you put a little water in there and then you load it for like 10 pounds of pressure. And you cook it like, yeah, you cook it for like an hour and then your canning's done. We are too a pressure cooker. So we have choices that we have been taught because we're raised in a society of don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. So we have options. We can swallow the struggle or the problem and we put it in our bellies. Or we can ignore it and pretend like it didn't actually happen, but the emotion is still present. We can numb it out with something, a substance, but it's still present, still here. Or we can spew all over everybody and have an explosion. You must know people like that. They just like, a lot of people like strangers do it to each other. It's very strange. So we are that pressure cooker. So you have to ask yourself, do I swallow things when things are hard? Do I ignore them or do I pretend that is not happening? Well, guess what? That's all still in there. And it's in there all the way back to your childhood, all the way back to me taking Janine's toy and her thinking it wasn't fair. Mm-hmm. So when she thinks that life's not fair in her 30s, isn't she just a toddler in the sandbox when she had to give the toy back? Right? So we be with that energy, we be with those emotions, and we teach you how to release them. Because just because the mind thinks a thought, do not think about blue elephants. And just because the mind thinks a thought, it will have a somatic response if it's real or not. What did you think about?
Blue elephants.
Blue elephant, right? So when we realize that, just because we think it doesn't make it true, but our body doesn't know the difference. So we can release these trapped emotions that have been here for decades. And those trapped emotions sometimes come together, and then they create limiting beliefs. So I have evidence of this, and this, and that's why I'm not lovable. This person said this, and this. This is why I'm never going to get married. Or this happened. This is why I'm never going to get promoted. None of it's true. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be with that, and we're going to look through our chart. We're going to look through our emotions, and we're going to allow them to show up, and we're going to release them until we feel courageous acceptance or peace. On any subject matter, it doesn't matter what it is. So, and you've done the work, so can you attest to what it's not just a theory, but it's a practical process. Does it work?
Absolutely. It is um it seems very simple. But we all know that sometimes the simplest concepts are some of the most effective, and it is definitely effective.
And I'm going to give Mel Robinson a shout out, right? How many of us have learned this last year and a half? Let them.
Mm-hmm.
Just let them. What happens
Absolutely.
to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You release all of the beliefs of that it's about you
Right.
because you just let them, right?
Just let
So
them.
yeah, it was such a great concept, and it really builds on that. But what we believe inside of ourselves, or what scripts are being played, is where the suffering occurs.
Mm-hmm.
So when we can release the suffering, you can let them, but it no longer is about you. It's not
Right.
personal. It's not about who you are. Then you're going, wait a second, I haven't heard from my addictive brain in a week. Where did they go? Because they're not, you don't need them to cope,
Right.
right? You've released everything. So they're going, well, you don't need me right now. You don't need me right now. You don't need me right now. And then sometimes life will get hard and stressful and you get a little bit overwhelmed. And, that's why you have coaches, right? That's why you have Janine, you have myself, reach out, we'll help you through this. Even if you take my course and you're like, wow, that's a lot. I want to get into that. I'll walk with you. You're not on your own. There are people that know this work and understand this work. And the gift really is for you to be free
And
of
I
these.
will make sure to put all of your details down below.
Yeah, take the course, even if it's just for giggles, to find your shadow or meet your sacred self, or answer the question that I love to ask, which is, are you perfect? And send Janine a text or a comment just about when you come to the realization that the answer is actually yes.
Absolutely. Well, Cheryl, this has been a great conversation, as we always have.
I feel like I did all the talking today. So with
Well,
that, I
because
apologize.
it is your course and we were getting a sampler of everything. And I always love listening to you talk. Um, you have a very wonderful cadence that really just helps people dive in and hear what you're saying. And I just really want to say I appreciate that about you. I'm going to continue to try to get rid of this sucker. As a matter of fact, I will let you know when it runs out, and we'll know we're on next phase where we're just done. But thank you
So
for a
just
great.
observe the emotions that come up throughout from this moment until you're done, and just keep releasing on them, and you'll be surprised with what you find. But yeah, step one, admit where you're at. Step two, make a decision. Step three, find your sacred self, find your higher power, realize you're not alone. Step four, let's get into emotional development, limiting beliefs. Let's meet our shadow, let's meet our personas, and then let's win the battle and ultimately win the war, so you can be the truth of who you are, because you're worth it.
Absolutely. So we will have a link that we can put in the details for your course, correct?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also
And it's
can be
nice. It's only $49, so it's a great place to start, and I look for
beautiful.
people's feedback.
Awesome. Wonderful. It has been great seeing you again, and I will see you for sure again, right?
For us next week.
All right. And in the meantime, we'll see you next time.
Peace.